All right, let's talk about something that's every homeowner's nightmare, water damage. It is messy, it's incredibly stressful, and wow, does it happen fast. But, getting a handle on the process from that initial oh no moment to the final fix, that can really make all the difference. So let's dive right in and demystify this whole thing.
I love this quote. It's something you hear a lot in the restoration industry, and it just perfectly nails the problem. See, when water gets where it shouldn't be in your home, it's not just a cleanup job. Nope, it's an active, ongoing threat that gets worse with every single hour that ticks by. So the response has to be just as quick, just as urgent.
It's a great question, right? Because it's so much more than a puddle on the carpet. We're in a race against things like structural rot, permanent damage to your belongings, and, well, something else that absolutely loves to grow in damp, dark places. But before we get to that, we've got to figure out where the water's even coming from in the first place.
Yeah, most of us picture some huge, dramatic flood when we think of water damage. But the truth is, a lot of the time, it's way more sneaky. It can come from a whole bunch of different sources. Some are out there in the environment, and others are hiding right there inside your walls.
Okay, look at the range of causes here. It's kind of wild. Of course, you have the big, obvious ones like flash floods or a massive thunderstorm. But then you have these silent culprits. Things like shifting clay soils around your house can actually crack your foundation. A simple winter freeze, boom, you could have a burst pipe. Even your air conditioning system can create a slow, steady leak that causes huge damage before you ever notice it. So how in the world do you spot a problem you can't even see? Well, you have to become a bit of a detective and look for clues. That musty smell? That is the #1 classic red flag for hidden moisture. And you can see these other subtle signs too. Paint that's starting to peel, baseboards that look a little swollen, or hardwood floors that are warping or buckling. Heck, even a water bill that's suddenly way higher than normal could be screaming that you have a hidden leak somewhere.
All right, so now we have an idea of where the water might be coming from, but here's the next critical piece of the puzzle. The danger isn't always just the water itself. It's about what's in the water. And believe it or not, there's a real science to it. You see, when a professional looks at a water loss, they don't just see water. They see a specific category of risk. The industry standard, which comes from the IICRC, that's the main certification body for restoration, it's all based on where that water originated.
This table breaks it down so clearly. You've got Category 1, which is clean water. Think a broken water supply line. The health risk is pretty minimal. Then there's Category 2, or gray water. This is water that's definitely contaminated, maybe from an overflowing washing machine. But the one you really need to be careful with is Category 3, black water. We're talking grossly contaminated water from things like sewage backups or floodwaters. This stuff requires a whole different level of safety gear and cleanup procedures.
So, we understand the threat. We know about the different levels of danger. Now, let's talk about the solution. The professional response isn't just random. It's a systematic, science-based process, and it all kicks off with one absolutely critical time frame.
48 hours. This number is burned into the brain of every single restoration professional out there. Why? Because in most environments, 48 hours is the window. It's the point where mold can really start to grow and take over. Once you pass that mark, you're not just drying things out anymore. You're potentially starting a much bigger, more expensive mold remediation project.
And the drying part? Well, it's not just about pointing a bunch of fans at a wet wall and hoping for the best. Professionals use the science of psychrometry. It sounds complicated, but it's really about measuring temperature and humidity to figure out the fastest, most efficient way to pull moisture out of the air and out of the building materials themselves. It's the difference between professional-grade drying and just guessing.
The whole process really boils down to these 3 major phases. First up is emergency extraction, getting all that standing water out with incredibly powerful pumps. Then the structural drawing begins, using all those scientific principles we just mentioned. And finally, only after everything is proven to be bone dry can the full restoration, the actual rebuilding, get underway.
Now, that last point is so important because it's where a lot of confusion comes in. People tend to lump the 2 main parts of the job together, but they are very, very different. You've got the emergency part, and then you've got the rebuilding part. They are not the same thing. So let's make this crystal clear. Mitigation, that's the emergency response. The only goal is to stop the bleeding, right? Get the water out, dry the structure, and make sure no more damage can happen. Restoration is what comes after all that. That's the part where you're replacing drywall, laying down new floors, and painting. You simply cannot start the restoration until the mitigation is 100% complete.
Okay, so the emergency is over. The mitigation team has packed up their equipment and done their job. What happens now? Let's get into the practical side of things, what it actually takes to put your home back together.
One of the first things you need to know is that proper drying takes time. It's just not an overnight thing. You can see here, it can easily take 3, 5, even 7 days or more. Technicians come out every single day to take moisture readings and track the progress. Rushing the stage is literally the worst mistake you can make, because if you don't get it completely dry, you're just setting yourself up for a future mold problem.
And of course, the big one, insurance. The magic words to remember are sudden and accidental. That pipe that bursts out of nowhere? Usually covered. That slow leak from a faucet you knew about for 6 months? Yeah, probably not. It's also so important to know that your standard homeowner's policy does not cover flood damage. That's a completely separate policy. And listen, the key to everything is documentation. Photos, moisture readings, equipment logs, that detailed record is what will get your claim approved.
So you've made it all the way through. The house is dry, it's rebuilt, everything's back to normal. But the final question we should all be asking isn't just about recovery, it's about prevention. Because now that you know the risks and you know the signs to look for, are you protected from having to go through this all over again?